myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright.
Good evening. Welcome to a slightly later Three Amigos, the start of your weekend. It is 6 o'clock, and this is the old time I think that we used to do it. And yeah, we're doing it. We're doing it this time because I've been for my COVID jab today. Joe's recovering from COVID. It's COVID central at the minute, but yeah, I've had the jab in my arm, and now my arm is knackered. So that's where we're at today. I've got no sympathy in the house, as you would imagine. So I've come on here for 2 hours of sympathy with me mates to talk about football and everybody in the chat. Thanks, Joe. That's what I like.
And I was going to say, you've already had very little of that, mate, really, to be fair.
Joe, I was kind to you, wasn't I? I was the one.
You were, mate.
If you were all right, son. Everybody else said just.
I'm really sorry to hear you've got a poorly arm. I'm really
Thank
sorry.
you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. All right, no Keith Patterson tonight. He's down in London, hobnobbing it with God knows who. So all the best to him. He says he'll catch up on catch up, which is great. As always, plenty to talk about. All your usual favourites. We're taking you through till 8 o'clock. And as always, we do get messages during the week. This one was one that got sent last week, which I missed, to be honest. It was from Mick Gilchrist. So, Mick, we'll go with this one tonight, pal. He goes, question for the Amigos. If you would, he says, a year on, if the owners were to cash in now, what are we going to be worth? So a year from now, Mitch, could you put a figure on it?
Well, I reckon we've already gone up close to $1 billion. If you look at what other clubs have gone for since our sale, that our sale price was, by nearly everybody that certainly me and Steve spoke to in the run-up to it, was seen as a bargain. If you look at what Bournemouth are being touted at the moment, what Everton, who may or may not be silently on the market at the moment, they're talking 400 million for them, and all they've got with regard to the new stadium is planning permission. So I think if you look at how the squad's valued now, some of the squad is increased in value just because they're better players under Howe. We've added better players. If you look at St James's and how that comes, if you look at the improvements in the training ground, and then compare to what people are wanting for other Premier League clubs at the moment, as it stands, I think they've already trebled their money. Add another year on. If we continue in the form we're in, if we keep with this form, we're going to finish top 6. I don't think anybody could say otherwise. I don't see how you could say otherwise if we keep this same form. So top 6, already trebled their money, probably 1.5 billion. And I think that would still be cheap.
Steve?
Yeah, add to that into the equation the fact that the Americans are crawling all over football clubs. If they did want to come in, then you can imagine they would come in with a ridiculous offer. You just have to look at what Chelsea went for as an example, with a ground that's smaller than ours. Yes, I think he's bought the potential. What he's bought is he's bought the TV rights. He's bought the ability to push the Premier League board into doing or hoping to do what him and the rest of the American owners want. So all those equations that I'll add to the commentary that Mitch has just said, and I'm in agreement. I think the club has trebled its value, and I think that the potential, because that's what you also sell. Anyone who knows when you put a value on a company, and Keith would be the perfect guy to talk about that. You look at the bottom line, you look at the top line, you take away all that. All those factors, and you come up with a multiplier. And I think that the multiplier you would be using would be at least 10 times 5. Great opportunity for Newcastle United to grow. It's one of those things, though, isn't it? It's not for sale. That I don't think they're going to bail out in the next 10 years, to be perfectly honest. I think we all know that PIF are there for the long term. We're part of that 2030 vision that the Saudis have. So all in all, the question is one of those, how long is a piece of string? How much are people willing to pay? And I think you're probably, I'm looking at you nodding, Joe. You're probably in agreement with me.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because if you think about, so what are we worth? Are we any further forward in terms of a league, in terms of a Premier League football club? Yes, as Mitch said, we are currently a top 6 Premier League side. If we keep going, arguably, we're going to be a top 8 Premier League side come the end of the season. Yes, St James's Park is a better place to be, and it was more than just a lick of paint, wasn't it? You know, the training ground is worth more money. The playing squad, Joe Linton alone's worth 18 billion. So I think for me, you know, yeah, absolutely. And just think, all of that, everything that you guys have just talked about, there's been done in such a short space of time. Mm-hmm. You've hit those 10 years that you've just mentioned, Steve. You know, if Al Ramayan was talking about the long haul and, you know, we're not going anywhere, Christ, if we're worth £1 billion already after 12 months, where are we going to be in 5 years' time? Where are we going to be in 7 years' time? We're going to be, you know, you're talking Real Madrid. That's what we're talking about if this continued growth continues. And of course it's going to, you know, the appointment of the commercial director, we're only going to be rolling around in more money very, very soon. So in a short space of time, if you can triple your value of anything, I wish I could do that on the stuff I sell on eBay. It'd be fantastic. But, what a time. What a time.
All those t-shirts.
I mean, if you factor in when we were being sold, tentative inquiries were made to West Ham, and I think the Dildo brothers wanted 700 million. And so, you know, that's like a year and a bit ago. And they wanted that for West Ham on the basis of what? That they're in London. You know, that seemed to be the only difference. And so, yeah, I think we're probably actually being reasonable and conservative as to what somebody would pay. And like you said, Steve, with all the American buyers circling, they seem ready to pay silly money for clubs.
Yeah, maybe we should have just come in and said it's probably worth 350 million. And that means that we're not worth buying, you know, and just leave it rolling at that.
Leave it alone.
Get away.
Another appointment today. Tom Dixon was first in with it. Shwan Jalal has been appointed today as goalkeeping coach to assist Adam Bartlett at Newcastle. Just another off the field appointment, which is great. BT asks this question. He says, do you not find it odd that we are not scoring many headed goals given the height of the squad? We had 8 corners against Everton and we didn't register a headed goal. It is something which I've pointed out. We're not particularly bad at set pieces, but we aren't scoring many headers, are we, Mitch?
We're not, but we're creating chaos that leads to other chances. And so I don't care whether they're going off your head, your arse or your bell end, as well, they all count. And so
I seem to remember your prediction for the Everton game was that Dan Burn was going to score off his bell end, I think so.
Probably, yeah. So, you know, if you look at the chaos some of those set pieces caused, and if you look over the last few games, the other thing he's doing is he's trying to work angles. If you look against Everton, the amount of times you had Botman and Burn overload at the back post, and the ball wasn't coming in direct from the set play, the angle was being changed by someone to put the ball to somebody else to cross it in from a different angle. And I think that's what he's looking to do with the height. The height's almost a distraction. And it's for me, it's causing, I can think off the top of my head, the header that Willock made, that Wilson made sure went in, that would have gone in. Didn't Botman set one up against Fulham? The game? Yeah, header. Good save, scramble away, and Longstaff finished it off. So, yeah, the goals mightn't be coming from headers, but they're coming from the chaos those headers are causing. And I think if you look at both, actually all three, Fulham, Brentford and Everton, look at how many free kicks we had around the box that didn't go directly in. They were laid off to create a different angle and then came in. And we got goals from them. So, I'm not too worried about not scoring headers because I think the height is causing problems, and the height is also giving us an advantage at the back. So I'm not overly concerned about it. I think all of these things will come, but what I think they're trying to do is be very smart about how they use the height and not just relying on pumping it into the box and hoping.
Yeah,
Yeah, go on, Steve.
Yeah, I think primarily for me, what the most important thing with regard to the defenders and the heading ability is our ability to see our own line. For you just look at the way the defence is played, the fact that we're not conceding goals. For me, that's the most important feature. Goals will come. Dan Burn was never signed as a prolific goal scorer. He's not a defender who gets goals. Shaw doesn't get goals with headers. He gets goals from 30 yards. He gets
30 on Thunderbusters.
Really, that we do have that scores headed goals is Lascelles, and we've seen that on a number of occasions over the last 4 or 5 seasons where he scored very, very good goals from corners, and his ability to come in and to barge through. And in the game at the moment, with you watch the way that everyone moves around the box. It's very, very difficult to score a header from a corner, especially if it's a direct corner, because there's so much chaos going on. There's so much pushing and shoving. There's so much barging, blocking off, etc., etc. They're more interested in ripping each other's shirts off than they are actually getting to the ball at times, and that's both defenders and attackers. And I think that's possibly why, Mitch, you've pointed out a really good point, which is that we tend to take something short. We tend to adjust the angle. It goes over to the back post. The lads come in, and then they knock it into the centre, and then it's the mad scramble, while the opposition's defenders are then turned, and then they're having to turn back on a pivot. And that comes on the training pitch. That's good coaching from Newcastle's both defensive and attacking coaches. So it shows that there's a lot of work being done. There's a lot of intelligence in there, but look at the goals we are scoring from breakaways. Look at the goals that we're getting from the edge of the box when we give the ball to Almiron. Let's not worry too much unless those goals also dry up, and then we'll start to worry about corners.
Yeah, look, it doesn't really matter, Joe, does it, how they go in? And I think it'll come with time. I mean, I think we've got to remember as well, this team is being assembled at the minute. We're at the very early stages, and it'll come. The key to this team's success at the moment is based on a solid backline, defending from the front, but also the unity that Eddie Howe talked about in the press conference today.
Yeah, the lads are right, aren't there? I think for me, being a connoisseur of the art of defending, there's something about getting your head on the ball in our own 18-yard box, isn't there? And not worrying so much about the other end. I do agree with the point, though. The law of averages would suggest at some point someone's going to pick Dan Burn out at the back stick. But as Mitch said, where we happen to sit, where we sit in the ground, when we've got a corner at the Gallagher end, you're in a perfect position, and you can absolutely see that chaos that Mitch is talking about playing out. They don't know whether to pick up, they don't know whether to drop off, they're watching the runners. That it's nice all of a sudden that it's something we've got in our armoury, and I don't think it's something that Newcastle United have possessed for a long, long time, having defenders worrying opposition in their own box. But I think that the good thing for me is our defenders aren't just about what they do with the head, either. Although Sven Botman's an immaculate header of football, and as is Dan Burn. But if you look at what they're doing with the feet, I mean, Fabian Schär at the minute, he's playing like Bobby Moore. His distribution, his ability to come out with the ball, that's then freeing the midfield to step up kind of 10, 15 yards further up the park. And the attackers we're seeing the benefits. So I agree. Whatever we're doing, it's about time someone concentrated on the defence of Newcastle United, which is something I've talked about for about 25 years. But it just looks wonderful, doesn't it? It looks absolutely wonderful. So as and when those goals do come, as and when Wilson finds his boots, or we sign a 25-goal-a-season centre forward, we're going to be a bloody force to be reckoned with. I
think the time you'd see it change is if Wood's in the side. I think they'll use him in a more direct fashion. Because like you think about his goal at Tranmere, that was, that was a Trippier ball straight onto his head in. So I think that might change things as well, because there's another threat, more direct threat, if you will.
Would you believe it? That'll be the headline one day this season. I keep saying it. Everybody around us is getting completely sick of us going on about Chris Wood, but never mind. And Mark Bayer says Mitch's perfect hat-trick is a left foot, a right foot, and a bell end.
Yes. Textbook.
And Sydney says bell end. Would VAR check that? Possibly. Shorts down and on with the camera. Blue Rhythm Boy says Big Dan Burn at left back suddenly makes sense. We drop the 3 centre backs when attacking, and Trippier joins the attack as a winger. Warnock is loving Big Dan Burn, singing these praises for a while now. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this whole thing about, Dan Burn playing left back and Matt Target having to force his way back in. Big issue made of it. We've talked about it, Mitch, on here quite a bit. But like we always say, leave it to Eddie Howe. Leave it to the man that has already been pointed out on a couple of occasions in the chat tonight. When asked about who the best English managers were, David Moyes said Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard. Is that Steven Gerrard who was sacked last night? Yeah, God. How am Moisey? Is that because we're run by Saudis? We'll come on to that.
Part of the gang, man.
We'll come on to that in a minute. But obviously the situation with Dan, but it's great, isn't it? And that unity, that photograph, Eddie Howe talked about it in the press conference today. He said it's a wonderful photograph, that, and he says it captured a moment in time, and it shows the unity within the squad, Mitch.
And you can't deny that. You see that all over the park. There's a buzz amongst the players. Look at the reaction the other night to Gordon's antics, and he got in Trippier's face. Who obviously Trippier can handle himself. He's probably shit harder than Gordon, but the reaction was, once he'd given the brush off, then Shaw's into him, then Botman's into him, and that's the unity. That's everybody fighting for each other. The tale from last season about Dele Alli and going to Joe Linton, so Chris Wood sits on him on his arse. All of these things show what's going on amongst our squad. They're all for each other. Look at the pictures after the game. Look at the picture full time on Wednesday, the defence and Pope together, saying, "There you go, there's another clean sheet." That kind of unity takes time to build, seem to get accelerated after the trip to Saudi. And in spite, I know we're probably going to talk about this a little bit more soon, in spite of what people are already chucking at about our next trip to Saudi, imagine if we kick on the same after that. It'll be scary. So the unity's there for everybody to see, and it doesn't need the full-time pictures. You just got to look and see what's happening on the pitch.
Yeah, Steve, you leave that business to Eddie Howe, don't you? He's doing a cracking job so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Mitch mentioned textbooks. I just suddenly had a vision of all the textbooks in Burnside High with pictures of bell ends in the back of them. That's all I could visualize. Mitch, I'm sorry. I thought
mine would be the creative and artistic one.
Very creative. Thanks for that, Mark Byers. Typical Mark. He always throws with, doesn't he? But that's what it's all about. It's about being part of a team, isn't it? It's about supporting your mates. It's just like you would be if you were all out together. Somebody had a go at a mate, then everybody piles in and calms the whole situation down, in inverted commas. And that's what's happening on the pitch. They're there fighting for each other, they're supporting each other, and they're proving that what we have got is an excellent team spirit. And with team spirit comes good performances. With good performances comes even better team spirit. Comes the vibe that you're getting off from the terraces. And it's all there in a package at the moment. And everything is rosy in the garden, to coin a phrase. So I'm absolutely delighted with what I'm seeing, and I'm sure everybody else is. And yes, when they're squaring up, everybody, I mean, the entire Gallagher end was just, I was waiting for get into them, and the rest
go on.
So absolutely brilliant, yeah.
Joe, that unity is fantastic. I mean, we've seen it last year with the dressing room photographs. Was fantastic to see. And we talked on the show, I think it was me and you, Joe. Should we stop doing this now? I just love seeing them, especially when we get to the lookalike section later on. You'll see why. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's been absolutely fantastic, hasn't it? The unity is there for all to see, and that's something you can't buy. It's something that you can't fake it.
And we've been, how long have we been crying out for it? We've been made up of a team full of mavericks. I'm thinking about that side that got relegated when Shearer had us for the last couple of games, and you had a team of people. Well, there weren't even a team, whether you just had some individuals who put some football boots on and hope for the best. And now we've got lads running through brick walls for each other, and it's really nice. And one of the good things, I mean, it wasn't a particularly brilliant game for the football purists on Wednesday. But on the way back, I was saying to the old fella, it was really good because we showed them our teeth. And I don't think Newcastle United have done that enough. You know, we're quite nice. We're a nice team with nice players, with a nice manager and some lovely owners. And, you know, but I think for me, you know, a bit of pushing, a bit of shoving, a bit of getting stuck in, the odd yellow card here and there, certainly doesn't do anybody any harm. You know, the great sides in history have been made up by having a nasty streak, and we've got one, but it's fine one player having a nasty streak. But as Steve said, when you turn around and 6 of your mates are stood behind you, suddenly it feels a bit easier to deal with, doesn't it? And in terms of the defence, I mean, yeah, I can wax lyrical all day long, you know, about Botman and Shah, Trippier. But I tell you what, that photograph, one of the things that stood out the most for me was there was a back four there together and then Nick Pope. And I thought to myself, in terms of a final piece of the jigsaw, that lad's been superb, but it must make you feel so much better coming out thinking, I've got these four in front of me. Nothing's getting past us today. And the proof's in the pudding. What, we've let 9 goals in and we're heading to Halloween. Absolutely unheard of.
And Joe, 3 of those goals were from Man City and 2 of them from Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like, that's crazy.
It's
I hadn't really thought about it. I saw somebody talking about it on Twitter, I think yesterday. And the penny drop was just like, hang on a minute. Yeah, 3 from Man City, 2 from Liverpool. So that's 4 goals.
Had your San Maximin, your Isaac, your Diaby, and your Maddison, and your Messi, and whoever else was signing in January. Hey, I'm getting carried away. Let's get the dream.
It's easy to get carried away though, and that's the whole point of having hope and being in, you know, enjoying it. You know what I mean? That's all we craved. And I know there's a few of me pals in from other podcasts that what you would call the alternative side of YouTube who are in tonight, who just tuned in. They support other clubs, and you know, they're all in, and they can understand when I'm doing these alternative shows. They can understand my excitement, because for the last, you know, however many years when I've been on these other shows, they just hear doom and gloom from me. You know what I mean? How's the football going, Steve? Don't talk about it. And it's just, you know, like, you know, another relegation battle for Newcastle. But ultimately, it's just great now. And I think I've been on a couple this week, you know, where I've literally had 20 minutes just talking. I can hear myself. I'm thinking, you know, when you feel like you should stop yourself talking about the subject because you're thinking you're boring everybody to death about how good Eddie Howe is, how good.
A moment.
How good Almiron is, this, that, and the other. But you know, listen, it's 14 years of that's been locked away within us, and now we've got the opportunity to come out and just shout it from the rooftops, which is brilliant. Steve Middlemas, I've just said that today myself, mate. He says, I got a feeling Rafa will get the job at Villa. I agree, mate. I do really think that's probably made for him. I think that's a better fit than Leicester, maybe. I know Leicester has still got Brendan Rodgers. Certainly don't think he would go to Wolves. You know, he's already, probably dipped going to China. I think that was a big mistake. So I think Villa, yeah, big club, big history, down that way, and potentially that's a one that Rafa could probably go in. Well, wouldn't take much to do, Mitch.
Wolves have given up the day. They've just appointed their caretaker full time.
All right, well, there we go.
That tells you something. I laughed at an article on the BBC website about candidates for the Villa job, and it was all like Pochettino, Thomas Tuchel, and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, why would any of them go there? Yeah. Why would you want to go there? They've already shown that they don't have the patience. They've already sacked Gerrard after the game and made him travel back on the coach with everybody, which is undignified to say the least. They had a journalist today saying, oh, well, you can't spend the way nation clubs can spend. They've absolutely spaffed money up the wall in the last few seasons. And pre-season, they were all tugging themselves, telling me that they'd signed all the players we were interested in, how better they were going to be than we were. And it just hasn't worked out for them. How Gerrard's handled Tyrone Mings is curious, stripping him of the captaincy, and I'm sorry, looking at that third goal from Fulham, Mings didn't work very hard to either clear the ball or get his foot out of the way for me. I know I wandered into tinfoil hat territory a little bit, but I've already seen Villa fans on my timeline accusing them of deliberately concealing an own goal. That place is a shambles. And again, it's another club with backing that are reluctant to put more money in under FFP. Without the money that they got for Grealish, they'd have been strangled. So what's going to happen to them next season? So whoever's going in there is going to have to be smart in the transfer market. And if anybody could hack that, Rafa's proved he can. So if he goes there, good luck to him. But it will be good luck to him. I think the other thing on the Gerrard front is that his assistant went to QPR. And that seems to have been the downturn for everything. I saw some of his pre-match talk about Chelsea going there, and the Villa fans were very upset because he basically put the white flag out. He actually said in an interview, Chelsea should be coming here and giving us a hey. What kind of managerial pre-match talk is that? Exactly. Yes. Aye. So and then you still hear him bandied around as one of the best young English managers and this, that, and the other. And yeah, he did really well at Rangers. I said openly on here, I would have him as Rafa's understudy. If we brought Rafa back, I would have liked nothing more than to have had Gerrard alongside Rafa to have a boot room kind of setup to bring the next manager through after that. But because of the timing of the takeover and everything, that wasn't meant to be. And do you know what? Sometimes life gives you happy accidents.
No, definitely. Yeah, managerial merry-go-round continues. A lot of people saying, hold on, Steve, Villa are a big club. Tom Dixon, Villa aren't a big club anymore. I think they're bigger than Leicester. And I mean, I guess that's just my opinion. I've always felt that Villa were a bigger club. And I go back to European glories. I go back to the days of, Peter With and those days, that they've always, in my time as a football fan, as a 50-year-old, Villa were up there. There were European glory nights at Villa Park back in the 80s. Leicester, modern day team, won the Premier League, won the cup, been to Europe. But Leicester was never a big team. They were always in the doldrums for me. So I've always put Villa ahead of them. I agree, Tom. Maybe they're not a big club anymore. But I get your point. Everyone's got their opinion. Steve, just getting back to the managerial merry-go-round. I mean, Gerrard getting sacked wasn't a surprise. It'll be clearly a surprise to David Moyes, who thinks he's better than Eddie Howe, of course. Yes,
absolutely. And I think, when you look at it, I mean, what a sequence of results that he's had, I mean, he kind of bailed out on Rangers and took that job thinking it was like he could just walk into it. Allegedly he turned us down or didn't even want to speak to Newcastle United at the time. There was a lot of spin going around about Gerrard at the time. I think if you're talking about his replacement, you're talking about, would Rafa be there? I think that's a good shout. I think you've got Christian Purslow, who was at Liverpool when Rafa was manager. He got peddled during the Hicks and Gillette saga. He was also at Chelsea when Rafa was there, I believe. So you can see connections there. You can see that someone of influence because Christian Purslow's now the one of the guys responsible for bringing a new manager in at Villa. So you can see those dots being joined. But I agree as well about what you're saying about Villa because I've always considered Villa as one of the top clubs, one of the top clubs that you talk about in terms of their history. In terms of where they are, you remember that they were, I think, founder members of the Football League, but they've always been there or thereabouts in the Premier League, in the First Division. They did slip for a period of time, but certainly came back. They had Doug Ellis, and everybody knew Doug Ellis, and Doug Ellis was quite prominent in the FA. That's why Villa Park's was always an FA Cup semi-final ground. It was one of the two that they were always played at. That gave Villa the history. That gave Villa the kudos, if you like. And so yes, I think it's an apple and a pear that you're comparing when you compare them with Leicester at the moment. After Rafa, though, who is that? I mean, I did hear a little tweet, a little bit on Twitter that said that Simeone had been approached. And when he got the phone call, his first question was, who gave him his number? And his second question was, don't ring me again. So that's the sort of thing that goes on. and you talk about Wolves and looking for a manager. Now, there's a club that's boxed themselves into a hole because they can now only approach people who can speak Portuguese because they've got that many Portuguese players in their squad. They went for the QPR manager who had spent time in Brazil who could speak Portuguese, and he turned them down. So a guy who's at QPR has turned Wolves down for one reason or another. I think he was also at Villa Park with Gerrard, and he left to make it on his own. Maybe his influence behind the scenes had more to do with the success that Villa were having at the time, and the influence that he had, rather than Steven Gerrard himself. Sometimes people work in partnerships. Sometimes people have excellent people behind the scenes, and some managers can't work on their own. There's all these dynamics, and wouldn't you hate to be a sporting director at this moment in time, unless you're the sporting director of Newcastle United?
Yeah, Beale getting a mention. We've seen more mention of Beale than EastEnders on here, Joe. But yeah, another managerial sacking. I mean, he's lasted longer than Brendan Rodgers. I didn't think that was well, Brendan Rodgers. So he's lasted longer than him. I didn't expect that. But yeah, it's just another axe fallen. Eddie Howe did speak about it in the press conference today, actually, and just said it's just a reminder, how vicious this game is. It's a hostile environment to work in, and anybody could go at any time.
It's a brutal game, isn't it? Absolutely. But if you think about the amount of money and the amount of emotional investment in it and all the rest of it, I guess it's got to be a brutal business, I suppose. And yeah, he did a great player. Listen, wonderful footballer. Did a great job at Glasgow Rangers, and was expected to be the next big thing. Unfortunately, he's gone to a club that kind of reminds me of the old Newcastle United. They're a little bit of a basket case club, illustrious history. They are a massive club where the people, I know Newcastle United fans don't like Aston Villa, particularly the sob on the Tyne and us getting relegated there and all the rest of it. But they're a huge club, the Nottingham Forests of this world, the Evertons. They're all synonymous with English football history. But for me, it just shows the importance of having a decent number two and having a decent coaching setup. I'm led to believe that things went wrong pretty much the day that Mr. Beale left. QPR are going from strength to strength. Don't be surprised if they're not a Premier League team next season. And unfortunately, Gerrard's been found out, hasn't he? And it's that old adage, isn't it? I mean, we look at Everton. We played a team with a fantastic English midfielder on Wednesday, and other than a couple of flashes here and there, they don't pull trees up. He hasn't got them playing fantastically adventurous attacking football. So just because you're a great player, I guess, doesn't give you any credentials to be a great manager. There is one person, an excellent boss out there that you haven't mentioned, who became available this week as well, Liz Truss. So they might give her a ring if she can step up. But no, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me with Villa if they go for Unai Emery. And then that'll be another stick to try and hit us with, that they got the manager that we couldn't, or it'll be something along those lines. But I agree with what everybody's saying. At the moment, we've got Eddie Howe, and they can have whoever they want. They can get any manager from anywhere in world football. We'll finish either of them this season, and Howe will be the one sleeping soundly on a night. So good luck to him.
I don't think it'll be Pochettino, by the way. I think Pochettino's hanging on for Tottenham when Conte goes to Juve. That's my prediction. And if not, then Poch will go to Juve himself. I think that's what Poch will hang on for, because I think he's far better than any than going to Aston Villa and trying to build. I think so. I can see Emery there. I could that one. I could see Rafa. Interesting if it was Rafa or Emery. That would be an interesting dynamic to see how the Villa fans cope. They can shout us about Rafa when it doesn't work. They can shout us about Emery when it doesn't work. But I think there's probably is this a good time to lose your manager with just before the World Cup? What would you guys do? Would you stick a caretaker in and hope for the next half dozen games and then give yourself a bit of time and to actually go out there if you're a supporting director, or would you be trying to get somebody in knowing that you've only got a few games and then you've got time to rest and look at it? All difficult questions to answer.
All good clubs have a manager lined up.
Do you think?
I think anyway, yeah. I think you have a manager lined up. But, I just think it was different with Newcastle when the takeover went through, because, you know, they were new at the game, not new in business, but new at the football business. So I think it was slightly different, and they had to take their time because it was a vital appointment. You know, they were bringing somebody in who was going to spend a vast amount of money and have to do it with their limited knowledge on football, if you like. So it was different with that. But I think big clubs make decisions knowing who's coming in, and it's just a case of either sometimes they come in straight away. I think Wolves, maybe in recent times, apart from this decision, have usually been on the ball. Southampton. Whenever you look at Southampton, they always seem to lose somebody, and you think that's them doomed. How are they ever going to change this? And then they pull somebody else out the trees. Liverpool are pretty quick with appointments. I mean, they had that much fated boot room for years where, you know, they're just promoted from within. But, you know, when you look back over the years, they haven't all been massively successful. But they've also had, managers who've come in, pretty quickly. So I don't know. It's one of them things. It's interesting. Roger says, I thought this was an NUFC podcast. It is, mate. We've got plenty to talk about. Don't worry. And we've got all of our regular slots, including this. The day I met, where I asked you to send in photographs of you meeting people from the club, players, managers, whatever, ex-players, ex-managers, quite a good selection this week. Alan McKenzie and Mozzie, thank you for this one. He was asking after you, lads. He says he's got a soft spot for the tune and he's changing his tune at the Oblix, the Shard, for birthday bait. And it was our good pal, Simon Jordan. So, yes, good to see Simon. I did meet him a while back, and he is a canny fella, really, away from the radio. Sarah, thanks for this one. Nothing to see here, just me and Peter on our way to the tune. And this one from Paz, who had a cracking meeting with a legend there, Peter Beasley, Rob Lee. But fantastic. He also got a chance to meet a few of the directors, which is absolutely brilliant. And this one was from Gaz. He says, I had the pleasure, he says, of meeting the main man this week with my brother at Whitley Bay Playhouse. Maybe one for the day I met. I am still buzzing. Kevin Keegan there, of course. And he did send us a picture as well of something he had signed, which was brilliant. Yeah, he says 30 years apart. But absolutely great. Keep them coming in. Always good to see those. Thanks for sharing them. And if you share them, we will do our best to get them on the show. As always, we have a t-shirt up for grabs on my Twitter, @SteveWraith. Give us a follow. It's pinned at the top. Place a bid. All proceeds go to the food bank. The Steve Howie Legends t-shirt is up there now. Place your bid and I'll announce the winner about 15 minutes before the end of the show. I forgot to do that last week. Yes, make sure you place your bid, and the winning bid will be announced before we finish. Get your bids in tonight. As I say, all proceeds going to the food bank. Anyway, we're all going on a Saudi holiday. Yes, no more Premier League for a week or two. Mitch, Newcastle have announced a trip to Saudi. Well, fancy that, because PIF are major shareholders. And as usual, no names mentioned. Don't want to upset people. But yes, some rather familiar journalists having more to say on this whole Saudi thing. And anyone who listened to me Eddie Howe press conference review, I've started doing them now because I do thoroughly enjoy listening to Eddie Howe's press conferences, usually only 20, 25 minutes. And I put up a summary of it, which only takes me about 10 or 11 minutes to go through. And on there, surprise, surprise, it sounded like Simon Bird from The Mirror. I could stand corrected, but it was certainly Simon, and I've heard his voice enough times to think it was him. But he asked a couple of leading questions. First being, what are your thoughts on Saudi bidding for the World Cup? There's talk of them bidding for the World Cup. You've used the facilities out there. What are your thoughts on that? Eddie just said, look, I didn't know that. It's news to me. And, I can't really comment on that because I don't know enough about it. He was then asked another question about you're going to Saudi, of course, for a bit of warm weather training during the break on the Premier League. Are you doing any promotional work out there for the football club or the government? And I thought, wow, what a thing to say. Eddie Howe again, superb. He just goes, I don't know what we've got planned when we're out there, and I can't really comment on that. And we moved on. And I thought, you know what? If it was you, Simon, it's because it's widely available on the internet that I can name him. It's on Newcastle's YouTube channel. I'd just love to know, is he being asked by his editor to ask those questions, or is he genuinely asking those questions for him? And, I'm not saying that he's got any malicious intent. Is he aiming to write those stories up in a positive manner? And then, sadly, it means that other journalists will jump on it and give it their own spin and their own narrative. I just don't understand what you're hoping to achieve when really the press conference is about Newcastle United's trip to Spurs at the weekend and should be accentuating the positives, not the negatives. And I just don't understand it, Mitch. I was annoyed about that again, and I shouldn't be, because we should just expect it, But once again, Eddie Howe, like a top batsman, going out at number 1 and number 2, batting them off with ease. And you just think the press will get sick of it, and those on social media who, to me, will remain nameless. I'm not getting into this name calling of people, but ultimately there are some journalists out there who are just intent on bringing this up time and time again.
In the last 2 days, we've been subjected to what I can see as a coordinated attack by certain individuals with an agenda. To me, there's absolutely no doubt about it. The one who's ran the article behind a paywall for an American newspaper. I know, an American newspaper. Where else is there American links? I just don't know. Who is talking about we're flying into Saudi in a charter from an airline linked to the plane that took the people who killed Khashoggi. Tenuous at best. It's using Khashoggi's name again to stir up a hornet's nest. And yet this same journalist spent time in the presence of Kylian Mbappe, owned by PSG, who are owned by Qatar, in the same way that we are owned, and yet ran out of time to ask any questions about human rights issues in Qatar. And we wanted to ask those questions, but I ran out of time. So what did you do with the time after that? You spent the time writing a gotcha article that you knew you could publish when we go to Saudi again, because everybody knew we would go to Saudi again. It was the worst kept secret in the world. At the same time, somebody who actually I usually have a lot of time for is writing an article from an associated publication that journalist also writes for, talking about the way we've been funded and going into the depths of the net spend we've had in a short period of time, totally ignoring the fact that we had a zero net spend almost in the previous 14 years, and 7.5 million in capex, which is less than what Sunderland put in over that period of time. And so anybody coming into Newcastle, it's why we said the true value of Newcastle United was more like 500 to 700 million, because of the money you have to put in to play catch up.
Yeah.
And that's why that's had to be done. The brush over the work that Eddie Howe did with that squad, when Eddie Howe came in, we were down. And you will never see another manager turn a team around like that, I think, in a long, long time. But let's ignore that. Let's absolutely ignore that and put it just down to one thing: money from Saudi Arabia. Are we going to do any promotional work? Well, the very fact that we've got Noon on my shirt sleeve, and where's Noon's core business? It's in the Gulf region. And so when we talk about what somebody's prepared to pay for sponsorship, they want to get, yes, thanks, Joe, they want to get value out of their sponsorship, do they not? So why? Let's focus on the wider Gulf. the first place that Newcastle United, under the current ownership, will want to strengthen their links is in the region that they are from. That's why it's very difficult when they also start talking about, well, that sponsorship on the shirt sleeves overvalued. You don't know what that value to Noon is because you didn't have until about 6-8 weeks ago a bloody clue who Noon were. I knew who they were because they're a Dubai-based company who tried to out Amazon. And so, you know, you can't then put an attached value on that because you just don't know what it's worth to them in the Gulf. In the Gulf, the Premier League is a global league, as we keep being reminded. And so we've got to accept these are all part of the things we've talked about over the last year and a half. Is that when it happened, we'd have to put up with certain things, and those things will reappear in different guises. And it's to get a reaction. And I think as a fan base, we're doing far better than I thought we would to jump back down on these people and get the reaction they want to say, look, everything's being sports washed. Well, no. And if we are doing work to strengthen relationship between the region and Saudi Arabia, we then puts us in a very interesting position as a fan base. As we've said before, we're one of the few people who can turn around to senior people in Saudi and say, oi, not in our name. Not in our name. And we've already given them a couple of little slaps about rainbow laces and people jumping on the timeline from the region under the club's tweets about certain things. And that's the way it should be. We should be able to be there to be a voice where the fan base have a fantastic position. And this is what Ashley never got. But what I think these owners will and do get is we can be their best critical friend. Your best mates you can turn around and get hold of and say, hey, you're bang out of order there. We need to get this sorted out. And they're the people you trust and you rely on. And that's what we are for the club. And I think the current owners understand that more than Ashley ever will. And I think the journalists writing these things, they're doing it to get a certain reaction. It's why they ask certain questions of certain people at certain times. Remember the gotcha questions chucked at Amanda Staveley not so long ago by one of the same journalists we're referring to. And what they're wanting is that ability to go, aha! So you support sports washing, do you? And it's bullshit, it's cheap, it's lazy. It's as lazy a stereotype as to say that we all demand Champions League within 18 months. It's as lazy a stereotype as many other things. Yet they get away with it time after time under the guise of being the people who want to ask the difficult questions about human rights. But actually, when they're put on the spot, one of them's proven he can't because he just ran out of time.
Steve, what's
your... a bit of a rant.
It was good though, and people enjoy rants on this show. That's why it's so popular. Nearly 600 in the chat. I know.
Wow.
I mean, we do the earlier one really because you know it probably suits us, but sometimes it's nice to do a later one because it means so many of you can jump in. 600 watching live. Thanks very much. We never take it for granted. I never ever take it for granted, and we really appreciate you. We appreciate the mods. Appreciate everybody in the chat, and I do try to get through all the comments and I highlight a few. So thanks very much for that, Steve. Don't forget to hit the likes. And funny enough, you know, I do this whole thing about hitting the likes, try to tell you how you can help grow the channel. What I never really took into consideration is there's a lot of people watch this on TV, and I'm just picturing people on their hands and knees of our age going, how the hell can you hit the like button on the TV? So probably the best thing to do is don't do that. Don't tell anybody you've done it. And then when the thing finishes, get onto your computer. That's the thing that the kids probably got in the bedroom. Open it up. Go to YouTube, search around USC Matters, and then just go to this show tonight after you watch the show and just press like that little thumb up thing. Just press the little thumb up. That'd be spot on. Steve, we'll go round and round in circles. It's like the magic roundabout without Dougal and Zebedee this. But, you know, it was Simon Bird, somebody says in the chat. I thought it was. Let's see, this isn't a witch hunt against Simon Bird because the questions were fine, But I just don't know why he was, what was his motive? What was he going to come out with? And we all know that these other journalists who've got this other motive would have come out and jumped all over them and switched Eddie's words around. It seems to me that they're dying to trip Eddie Howe up in some way, shape or form.
Yeah, without a shadow. I mean, you think the penny would have dropped that Eddie is not going to talk about anything political. He's not going to be dragged into some controversy. And they're really they can carry on shooting from the hip, but they're not going to get anywhere with him. He's too well versed now in knowing what's coming. And these are the questions that they need to direct when they get the opportunity to the owners, and let them direct them. That's the only place, not to the players, not to Eddie, not to the captain or anyone else, And as for which airline we're flying on, well, maybe we're flying on Saudi Air because all the American airlines are still sending forced rendition prisoners to Eastern European countries. God knows. I mean, it went on for long enough. I can't remember anyone ever having a pop at Everton when their owners were from Far Eastern climes and questioning the prison camps or anything like that. It's politics for politics' sake now, and it's getting away from what we all want to talk about, which is the football and the great football that we've watched at St James's Park this season. The performances have been put in, the great players we've now got to watch, and the fact we've only conceded 9 goals this season, and we've got the strongest defence in the league. I'd have preferred the journalists to be concentrating on that. Is Joe Linton going to be fit for Sunday? What do we think of the possibility of Wilson getting into the England squad? Will he be ahead of Ivan Toney? All these type of things. But no, it's once again, you're going to Saudi. What you're going to be doing? What they're going to be doing is what they did the last time. They're going to be enjoying themselves as a collective, as a team, doing more team building, doing more board games, and being entertained by the owners and given an opportunity to chat to the owners and for the owners to get a little bit more background on what the players are, because that's what happened the last time. And I got some feedback from people that said, you know what, there are players in our squad who were gobsmacked that they were sitting around a table talking to the chief executive, talking to the owner of the football club, not Amanda and me, Dad, but other people that were there, people from Saudi Arabia, directors, etc., people of influence, and those people want to know what their life was like, what their family were like. And they said they'd never, ever had that at any other football club that they've played for. Never once have they been approached by a director of a football club and said, how are you getting on? How's the family? Tell us about your kids. Are they settled in at school? Tell us about the wife. How long you been married? All those type of things. Just, and then the players, being told, when a player says, well, we're probably going to be leaving, you're going to be building this club, and being told, well, why? Why do you think you're going to leave? You show us what you've got. There's no reason why this talented bunch of players you can't be part of. And you see suddenly players lifting themselves. And then all of a sudden, what happened when we came back from Saudi Arabia? We had a totally different team, a totally different mentality across the squad. And we had players that were playing out of their skin. Or more importantly, players playing to the talent they had. And a manager who could drive that talent with that little bit extra. And we've always said on this panel that it's that 1%. That's what makes a good player into a great player, that 1%. You put that extra 1% in yourself, and the rest of your team are putting that extra 1% in. Half of that percentage is for yourself, and the other half is for your teammates. And when you blend all of those together, that's when you get great performances. And that's what we've had since we came back from Saudi on our trip last season. And if we can replicate that, and we can get the same team spirit with players who perhaps weren't there in the previous visit, the likes of Isaac, who cannot be going to the World Cup now because of an injury or whatever. In fact, I don't even know whether Sweden qualified for the World Cup. I haven't even looked. I don't think they did. But if they did, then fair enough. Shows you I need to get that wall chart ordered pretty quick. But yeah, that's what it's all about. That's what football's about. And that's the team spirit Eddie Howe's building, and it's being built with the help and assistance of the owners We've now got a chief executive that's going to be in place who'll be on the trip who wasn't there the last time, and he'll be wanting to find out about the players. He'll be wanting to mix with them. He'll be wanting to take them for a meal, or he'll be wanting to be part of it because he looks like that sort of guy. And so will our director of football, stroke sporting director. You know, that's the team. We've got a team now that is no longer just the manager. It's no longer just everybody rattling around wondering what Mike Ashley's going to do and what Lee Charnley's going to say, because they're the only two people at the football club and they were never there. So it's a totally different beast, and that's what's good about it. And why we're going to Saudi? Because the weather's nice and we can't go to any of the other places in the Middle East because the cup is on, the World Cup. Remember that? That's what we're going to be concentrating on during the 6 weeks. When there's
where's the World Cup again, Steve?
Qatar.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Qatar. Joe, look, the problem when you're last on the panel, you just end up repeating, I guess, what most people say. But, you know, I love this suggestion that we've had from Ian. He goes, wouldn't it be great if a local journalist called out one of these journalists from the South when there's a live press conference on? Yeah, we could get them on some kind of gladiators pool, couldn't we? That would be a good idea.
Can I just ask how your arm is, Steve? Are you all right?
Oh, thank you, Joe. Yeah, I mean, it's stiffened up a little bit, but I've got into this relaxed position now. But thanks, Joe. Thanks.
You know where I am if you need me.
Cheers, mate.
Listen, I'm going to swear now. It's lazy bastard journalism. What is the best? What is the best that these guys are hoping Eddie Howe's going to say? Yeah, I absolutely disagree with this takeover. Saudi Arabia is an abhorrent place and it won't wipe off the face of the earth. He is not going to say that. And you know what? Even if he thought that, he's not going to say it, is he? Because you don't bite the hand that feeds you ultimately, do you? So they need to get that in their head. We talked about it a while ago on the show. Is there a space for the owners to come out and answer these questions on behalf of the kind of footballing section of the club? Maybe. Although why should they? Fundamentally, the world has to get its head around the fact that we are majority owned by a Saudi Arabian public investment fund. That's the fact. So why are you going to Saudi Arabia? It's PR. Why wouldn't we go to Saudi Arabia? It makes sense. If we were owned by Finland, I'm sure we'd be going to Finland on tour. So where we going on our pre-season break makes never mind. And I think the other thing is that the bit that people don't think about, if they're wanting Eddie Howe to have an opinion, if they're wanting Jamal Lascelles to have an opinion, if they're wanting me to have an opinion on Saudi Arabian culture, the best place for me to be is probably in Saudi Arabia. I learned more from Al Waleed over a weekend than I think I ever have. I've never even heard of the place, to be brutally honest, as such. So I guess for me, there's something about, you won't answer questions, you won't talk about Saudi Arabia, but we're also going to chastise you for going over there and daring to find out. So, we could play tennis with them all day long, couldn't we? Howe's there to talk about football. The players are there to talk about football, and the supporters are there to talk about football. So the best thing to do to shut these lads up is don't buy the Mirror. It's shite anyway.
And if you want to go to another level on this, Joe, why is there nothing said about the 70s and 80s when Liverpool and Man U used to come to the Gulf on a regular basis? That's why they've got such big fan bases here.
Yeah.
They were regularly in Saudi Arabia. They were regularly in the UAE in particular. Longest standing unbroken sponsorship in the Premier League. Saudi Telecom and Man United. Nobody talks about that. No. Nobody talks about that at all.
Well, it's not news, is it? Because it's not linked to little old Newcastle who are now currently...
Like I said, a couple of weeks ago, I got offered a new credit card off the bank, Emirates NBD. And the guy was shocked when I told him to sort off and take his Man United credit card and stick it in his arse crack. Because it was just like, I don't want that. But you like football, yeah, and I don't support them.
Yeah.
And so, there's all of these little things going on in this region with other clubs, and has been for years. Doesn't even get a mention.
Yeah. I'd like to see those reporters start digging into what's actually going on in the Premier League. What's going on with American owners, the influence that we're going to have over that, where the Charity Shield is going to end up, where this so-called all-star game And Martin Samuel wrote a little bit about it today where he ripped it apart, and quite rightly. But they all should be doing that. They all should be starting to question it.
But Steve, that's journalism, though, Steve.
That format.
That's journalism, Steve. You're dead right. That is somebody going out and doing some actual journalistic work, researching, interviewing people, getting to know exactly what's going on, and then feeding it back to the public who would quite happily read it and take it on board. But you're not. I'll just sit there and ask Eddie Howe, what does he think about camels? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, Steve. And I think you're right, and that's why I say it's lazy journalism, because some of these people have got to really, there's a skewed version of what journalism is at the moment. The world's in chaos, the country's in chaos, and the best the Daily Mirror can do is push Eddie Howe on an answer of, about something that he's not allowed to have an opinion on. It's crap. It's absolutely crap. And yet,
does anyone buy newspapers, Joe?
Well, we keep feeding them, Steve, don't we? And if we don't buy the paper, he's going to tweet it, and then if he tweets it, he's going to wind all us up. And we're going to be wasting time on a Friday night talking about it when theoretically we should be getting ready to laugh at funny pictures of dogs. But I don't know. I just think we keep feeding it and we can't help it. We keep biting and I think that's probably why it keeps happening. So until they get the quote that they want, until they get the soundbite that they want, they haven't got a story, have they? So
it's like poking a hornet's nest. That's all they're doing, absolutely. But they're not going to get a response. And when Jimmy says when Leicester won the Premier League, the whole team went to Thailand. I wonder why. Exactly. And how bad is it going to be when we win something, says Sydney, which is another good point. And
do you know what? I hope when they go to Saudi, they fly a Saudi livery 787 over with a Newcastle United badge on the side of it and stick that right up everybody. They can all have a bloody good whinge about that.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's just a joke.
Mitch, do you remember how well that other Leicester trip to Thailand went? I think 3 of them got.
Oh, that one.
Manager was bulleted as well. That was a good trip to Thailand.
Okay, we'll not dig too deep into that in case we get more stories about Bellends. It's time for
some hard tackle.
Tweet of the week, as always, we know the politics is going to play a big part in this one. And Big Sam has lasted longer as England manager than Liz Truss as Prime Minister. That was actually on the Sunderland banter page, proving that they do actually have banter other than slagging us off. Gavin Webster said, hello, is that Downing Street? Me and Big Joe will come along. Steve Bruce putting himself in for another payday. And Neil Skinner says, do they deserve each other for discussion tonight, perhaps? In the news for you guys, please see Aston Villa's new manager. Of course, it's Liz Truss. Thank you for that, Neil. And this one from Albert. She's from Leeds and she lasted the same amount of time as Brian Clough. Gone in 44 days. That was brilliant, Albert. Thanks for that, mate. As always. This one, Chancellor Rota for the next 7 days. Friday, Jeremy Hunt. Saturday, Sajid Javid. Sunday, Sam Allardyce. Monday, Mr. Tumble. Tuesday, Skeletor. Wednesday, Inspector Gadget. And Thursday, the evil guy at the end of Inspector Gadget with the cat. Thanks, Ian. A lot of work went into that one. Glennie Rog says the next Tory budget, no income tax, no VAT, no bunny back, no guarantee. Pity Julie's gone. She missed out on the singing there. Counting with Quasi, a new book that's out by Ladybird. 4 minus 5 equals 9. And Castoria certainly winning round friends with a new top that's come out. And they're out a Newcastle United limited edition Christmas top now. Only £95. Yes, anyone who got suckered in by that, you need your eyes testing. But that was a good one, Scott, for life. That made me chuckle out loud this week. Bruno's father in the middle. He's exactly what we need. And you might have seen somebody put a comment in there before that he actually was posing for lots of photographs. I saw Adam P with one as well. There was actually a grown bloke who went up to get a photograph with him, who he mistook for a child, and he ruffled his hair. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Speaking of Adam, here he is. Thank you for raising the best midfielder in the Premier League, he says. And a big shout out to Adam P, who got the biggest cheer of the night last Friday when he scored a goal for the Newcastle Legends against Manchester United Legends. And somebody actually scaled the fence to celebrate with him, which didn't go down well with one of the Legends who will remain nameless, but he wasn't very impressed. New door fitted at number 10, says Spenny, who's in the chat tonight. Good evening. It's a revolving door. Yep, no surprise there either. And Lee Johnson, 2 tweets in this week. Been empty for 6 years plus now, that, and they still wank themselves about their amazing fan base. Yes, Sunderland's still struggling for supporters at the stadium, it would seem. You might see this as well at the Everton game midweek, and the Tyrannosaurus Rex were out in force, which did give us a laugh. And this was good as well. Lovely of Nick Pope to give us his best Pickford impersonation last night. And this one, maybe Pickford is finally adapting to the stick like a grown-up. He might even applaud us if he could reach, said NUFC level. And War Flags basically just said, we have absolutely nothing to do with this, we promise. And that was, of course, T-Rex doing the run along with the flag. The Killjoy stewards, though, did stop it. Health and safety issue, apparently.
Do you know how you drown Jordan Pickford?
No.
Ask him to do the dishes.
Hey! Castle United tweeted the photo that we've all been talking about tonight. Kieran Trippier replied at the bottom, when that 1 year 7 wants to play with the year 11s. Good crack there, Kieran. Good crack. And this one. And then Gordon said he was going to knock me out. Thank you, David. Very good. And this one from Roberto Rojas. The UK has had 2 prime ministers, and Miguel Almiron still scored more Premier League goals in that time span than Jack Grealish in his entire Manchester City career. But you wish Grealish kept his mouth shut. So the cup says pull over. And I said, no, it's a cardigan, but thanks for noticing.
Well done, Jimmy.
Thanks, Jimmy. Brilliant. You'll have to look at this picture. Wayne Bennett says, apparently some men can't find the cathedral.
Down there at the bottom.
There's a few people at home now looking at that thing and can't find the cathedral. All right, okay. When you cut down too many trees. Brilliant, Ian. We've had some great visuals this week. And I upset a few Man United fans, and so did Alan Shearer. I called Manchester United Manure. I actually got a reply saying, no, Manure is in fact horseshit, with a verbal and photographic description of what it was. And this one from Jimmy. Where were the masks during the Drakkar Noir outbreak in the 1980s? That was a really funny thread, Jimmy, because people then started taking photographs of it. Some people still had some in their cupboard. You're probably from Christmas 1980.
Jesus.
I know. Great as well. Stephen Kennedy on Facebook. Well, I've got a Facebook group. Get across there and just like it or join it. Well, blow me. They cater for everything in Aldi Sunderland. No need for carpet burns on your Macam knees anymore. Yep, that's a blowjob stool.
Eh?
Yeah. Tell us about it. Got no idea what that is, but thank you for that. I meant the stool as well. Wayne Bennett says, does this mean Steve Bruce has got himself a job in Tesco's? Please do not throw cabbages at our staff. Said Pelé, my girlfriend left me because she says I'm too obsessed with football statistics. Now she's my ex-GF. Zara has been back in with these, you can tell, can't you? Yeah. Mark Duffy, and it's Almiron with equaliser. Paddy Power, that was Wolves' 5th goal of the season, taking them 1 clear of Miguel Almiron. Another classic picture. If you find a magic lantern, be careful what you wish for. And this one was interesting as well. Notts Forest, who hate being called Notts Forest, hence the reason I call them that. Playtime! And I had the little Wolves around the Wolves player. Of course, Wolves won the game 1-0, and they tweeted this. Playtime's over. This one had me a little bit puzzled, lads. Wayne Bennett said, just wondered that the two alcohol connoisseurs, Stu Penman and the Geordie dentist, could help explain the bottom left picture on this beer can, please. Mitch, did we get to the bottom of what that actually meant?
Never really got the bottom of it. I had a few ideas of my own, but it's not. To be honest with you, I never read the label.
But there we go. That's it. Simple question. Anybody know what that is? Stick it in the chat. Obviously, no driving, I presume. It's the guy who looks as if he's got his knees bent. And I mean, my vision's quite bad, but it looks like there's something protruding from his middle
I think
body.
you're right. I think it's telling you not to put certain parts of your body inside the can.
It's not. No, it's telling you can because there's not a line through it.
Anybody know what that means? I really do. I mean, that's no under 18s, no pregnant women. Make sure you stick it in the bin. It's no drink driving. And then you can do whatever that other thing is.
Yeah.
Anybody got a suggestion? Answers on a postcard. If Newcastle fans don't chant "What a feeling" when you've got no effort in sealing to the tune of Lionel Richie, classic dancing on the ceiling at today's game, you've really got to ask where we are as fans. Yes, and I think one or two people did sing that. Michael, this really interested me. On Saturday, Trent Alexander-Arnold could become the first player to a Premier League game next to a river that shares his first name since Don Hutchinson for Everton away at Sheffield Wednesday in September 1999.
No, that is Stato.
Michael, how are son? Come out of your box room, get outside, have a breath of fresh air. Honestly, mate, that is taking it to new levels. That really is.
Go walk along a river.
Ian, this is your hat trick of tweets this week. Are you sure, Pete? I could swear Mum said the best candy came from the Schmidt house. Halloween on the horizon. And went for an interview with a blacksmith. Are you any good at shoeing horses? I said, no, but I once told a donkey to F off.
The oldies are the best.
They are. And never in my life did I think I would witness someone who twists more than me misses, said Scott.
Brilliant.
That is class.
And the last one comes from Steve Hasty. And I love this because we can all refer to it. Street football rules as a kid. We'll go from reverse order. 10, getting the ball stuck under a car is the most stressful part of your life. 9, whoever kicks it over a fence gets it. 8, if you were picked last, you had no hope in life. 7, if nobody has a football, a can will do. 6, no referee. 5, even if your team is winning 29-0, the winner is always determined by the next goal wins. 4, the match only ends when the person whose ball it has to go in for their dinner. 3, penalties are only awarded if there's a broken leg. 2, the person whose ball it is decides who plays. And 1, the fattest kid was always in goal. We are not fat shaming anybody here at all, and take that with a pinch of salt. But Steve, that was brilliant, mate. Absolutely brilliant.
When I saw that, I just couldn't resist. It was absolutely superb, and I think there's loads of people out there that can relate to that. Street football, bring it back. Although I don't know where we'd fit in the 1 to 10, mind.
No, definitely not. Brilliant stuff. Keep them coming in. Zara, thanks for restoring normal service. We'll have some more of them next week. We'll make you pee, says Nicholas. No, you can dance, says Elaine. Rob says erectile dysfunction, maybe. Jimmy reckons it's you can dance. Looks like only drunken goals off the bell end, says Jack. Yeah, absolutely superb. Some great suggestions coming in there. I don't actually think any of those are that. I think maybe it is something to do with dance, but who knows? Who knows? Hasty, that and Kirby. Kirby was good as well. It's another game from back in those days. John Justice Allen says the sign on the can means when pissed, you can still score with your bell end. So I think we'll go with that. Yeah, that's what we'll officially christen it. Get your bids in for the Steve Howie t-shirt. You got half an hour. I'll check and see where we're at with that in due course. I'm going to give a quick shout out with the adverts as well, because the pre-recorded one is now slightly out of date. So thanks for skips and bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3 Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals. You can get them at 304 Old Durham Road in Gateshead, or give them a call on 01914782730. Website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk, or email darren@darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD, hemp and cannabinoid specialists. Get them at thegohd.com. And thanks to Philip Reed and the guys at 3 Property, Matty Patterson as well. Give Matty and Phil a follow on Instagram, or give Phil a ring on 07966 871993, or email Phil at 3property.co.uk. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria, which Steve and I tested, and I know Alan was very happy with the video that went out, so thank you, Alan. And he sent us another couple of sauces for me and Steve to try, and that is 01768 210 102, if you want to call them and book some, or go to the website mrvickies.co.uk. Media Arts, Neil, thank you so much for all the help with the video side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. Subscribe. There is a subscription button down below. Again, use your phone, use your computer to do it. Some people have been given advice how to do it on your TV. Apparently you can do it, but that's all you need to do. If you're signed into your YouTube channel on TV, you just click the subscription button down below, and that's it. Because I looked at the analytics, and 50% of you tune in on subscribed. So if you 50% subscribe, we'll hit the 50,000 this year. That's all it takes. Hit the like button as well, the thumb up. It's dead easy to do. If you can't do it on your TV, do it on your phone or do it on your computer later, and click share. That's important. Share it to Facebook, share it to Twitter, share it to LinkedIn, wherever you can find some Newcastle fans who you know, and point them in the direction of this show and this channel. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify and the rest. And if you want to join as an NUFC Matters cult member, where you get a scarf, a cup, a membership card, a pen, and entry into the monthly draw, you just need to pay a one-off £25 fee. And how do you do that? Well, you email John at nufcmatters.com, or go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and click membership, or put your phone over the QR code there and it'll take you straight there. If you want a car sticker, we give them away for free. If you subscribe, just email John at nufcmatters.com and he will send you one out. Peter Beardsley is on at St Dominic's Social Club. It's a Catholic club up in Newcastle, 10th of February. Tickets available from the venue direct. And get yourself onto Woucher. Tyneside Irish Centre evening with Peter Beardsley is Friday, February the 17th. And you can get your tickets on Woucher. There are 50% off on there. Get yourself straight onto there tonight. And it's a great idea. Christmas gift idea for your family. Take somebody along and come to the Irish Centre. Me and the lads will all be there as well. And John has got in quick with the Christmas jumpers. Merry Christmas. Your Bruno Christmas jumper. Get yourself on nufcmatters.com and find that. The Food Bank, we always support it on this channel. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is the virtual matchday bucket. Get yourself onto there because there's no home game this weekend, and make a virtual donation if you can. Don't forget the Food Bank t-shirt. Again, that's the third shout out and the last shout out I will give. At Steve Wraith, get yourself onto Twitter. Give us a follow and place the bid underneath. And you never know. You might be lucky. It's going to be signed by Steve. Okay, over to our humorous part of the show. Elliot Slesser always sends us a joke. This is this week's. Didn't know where to get me Scouse mate for his birthday, so I put £20 in his nan's purse. I thought that was a good one this week with us playing Everton. Thank you, Elliot. Keep them coming, mate. Love your jokes. As always, we have a monthly prize giving through John at qtechshop.co.uk. Now, the clues were all a bit skew with. So I've got the 3 clues. A bit like Eric Morgan. I've got all the clues, but not necessarily in the right order. So here we go. 80k transfer fee. Washington Whips. 13 Newcastle goals. So that's 13 Newcastle goals, Washington whips, 80k transfer fee. One more clue to come next week, and then you have the opportunity of answering the question on next week's clue and winning a prize, which will be announced next week. So keep your eyes out for that. Is there a watch along this week? No, I am in London, so no watch along this week. I'm very, very sorry, but no. And you can get an erection, says Darren. Talking about that, he says symbol means warning. Alcohol may cause spontaneous erection. Beer goggles advised. That sounds now the way he's written that sounds as if he knows what he's talking about. Yeah. But there again, he could just be very good at putting these kind of messages in.
So election is that for Liz Truss?
Well, he's corrected it by saying erection at the
end.
Right,
that's right. I was going to say it.
Isn't that a Chinese election?
Specific to the Tory party.
It's interesting. Anyway, there we go.
I thought alcohol made Mr. Floppy pay a visit to Toy Town.
Possibly. Quick question for Steve. Keith says, it's all been about erections and elections on the show. Steve, has the food bank doubled since PIF took over? I guess you've made more money because Jamie Rubin has maintained the stance that he made since he came in 12 months ago, which is to double whatever you take on the day, hasn't he?
Yeah, Jamie matches anything that's taken on the day. He did last season up to £50,000. So when we hit £50,000, that means we'd hit 100. Jamie also agreed to carry on because we actually hit that 50,000 collection mark around about February of last season. And then at the start of this season, Jamie and his foundation said that they would do exactly the same, which was match us. So match any donation that was made by fans on a weekly basis at the home games. And so that means that, for example, this week, I think at the Everton game, we collected 2,500, which is amazing for an evening game. It might have been slightly more. And so that was matched by Jamie's foundation. So yes, great help, great support. It's just all part of the problems that we have in the city and the very fact that Newcastle fans are more than willing and able to help out people who are fellow supporters who just can't go, families in need for a whole host of reasons. But the community, that's what we're showing, community spirit. And you've got to take your hats off to the way Newcastle fans have rallied around on match days and the support that they give. The collection point where every single penny that's collected is taken away, counted by the West End Food Bank, and then we get notified on the Monday morning once they've done the count and are able to put that and able to tell Jamie exactly how much it is that's been collected that week. And that's the way it works. That's the way it always has worked, and that's the way it continues to work.
Fantastic, great stuff. Somebody's put a question to me. I'm just trying to find it. Mitch, that one, are you coming over to Newcastle for Christmas?
I might be. I'm still waiting to find out others' movements
Right.
At the minute before I book anything specific. So yeah, there's a chance I could be over at some stage Christmas or New Year.
John guarantees we won't have the answer to next week's clue, so that's great. You're really encouraging people with that, John. Blue Rhythm Boy says, Steve, who would you rather score a last-minute winner this weekend, Richie or Wood? Wood all day long, mate. Wood all day long. Yeah. Just so that headline is in the back of the paper. Would you believe it? When he gets the winner. Two people asking this, so I will put it on. At the risk of running the wrath of Roger, he will go, I thought this was a Newcastle podcast. I'm only joking, Roger. He goes, lads, what do you think of Cristiano Ronaldo's actions on Wednesday night? And Clubber says, Clubber, where's your jokes tonight, son? You're letting me down. What does panel think of Ronaldo's latest behaviour on Wednesday night, refusing to come on as a substitute? Yeah, I mean, there's been an issue since the start of the season with him. We don't need to waste too much time on this, but just a bit like a spoiled brat, isn't he, Mitch?
Petulant, spoiled child. And every reason why, if it's true he was offered to us, Eddie Howe's just went, nah, thank you very much. He's not coming in to destroy our dressing room, thank you. I think he's shown his true colours yet again. It all revolves around him. And I think he's obviously bursting to be out of Man U, and he's going to do it one way or another. And it comes back to Sir Bobby Robson's question at one time about how do you make a rich man sweat? What can that actually do to him in terms of sanctions? He's got his money, and he can sit there and stick two fingers up at the club. The most the club can do is suspend it. Isn't this the maximum suspension by the PFA? 4 weeks' wages.
Two.
So that's just two, right? So that's the biggest way they can hurt them is 2 weeks' wages.
Yeah.
Wow. It's not the first time he's been doing seeing stuff like lighting bloody cigars with £20 notes. Sadly, as somebody who is currently rated as one of the highest influencers on social media, that kind of behaviour is really selfish, thoughtless, and childish.
Yeah, that's not a fire alarm, Mitch, is it? You're not going to have to scale out of the building, is it?
It is, but it won't be. They test them at strange times in here.
All right, okay. Well, I just don't want to. I don't want to suddenly see smoke coming in behind you or something, and you're having to scale down the side of the building. Mitch, thanks for that. Steve, just give us your views on Ronaldo. We don't need to waste too much time on it.
Yeah, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy when the club wouldn't sell him in the summer. He wanted away. They should have let him go. They wouldn't have had any of these issues. Ten Hag could have had a clean slate, and he could have done what he wanted to do. As it's happened, I get the impression that the board at Man United are now throwing Ten Hag under the bus in terms of how Ten Hag has to manage it. And as far as Ronaldo's concerned, is he bigger than the club? Well, people would argue that there's nobody bigger than the club. But in terms of what Manchester United are at the moment, I'm not surprised at what he's done, to be perfectly honest. He wanted away, should have been let away. And as far as influence on young kids are concerned, I'm more interested in what the likes of Jurgen Klopp did last weekend in the game and the influence that he has and some of the players have on youngsters in grassroots football. And we've also seen certain footballers or ex-footballers who have created situations on the touchline and youngsters' games at grassroots, and they're allowed to be on Match of the Day still. I'd like to get to the bottom of that. I'd like to, but in terms of we've got a manager who creates all sorts of issues and seems to be getting away with it. But as far as Ronaldo's concerned, his days are finished at Man United. He'll go somewhere else. He's 37-year-old. He was desperate to play. He was desperate to be away, and then once he was back, he wanted to play. But the club's moving on, and they're going to move on without him. They should have done it in the summer. Yeah,
they should have done. It just caused a bit of an issue for Manchester United, hasn't it, Joe?
Yeah, it's a shame, but I'll sum it up in one word: prick.
Yeah. Fair enough, mate. And that's how you do a quick assessment on Ronaldo and his time at Old Trafford in this summer. Half an hour left.
Chat.
Yeah, more well. Yes, we've started with it, and it looks like we're going to continue. Tomorrow morning, a little treat for you. Mitch is working, so we have this combination: Penman and Jacobs.
Wow.
Penman looks like he's necked about a pint of Ribena, John. Yeah, I'm sure you've done that deliberately. But yeah, Penman and Jacobs tomorrow morning should be interesting. Those two have had a little tete-a-tete over the years, over the show, and be good to put them together. 10:30 in the morning for that one. I will have time to do a show on Sunday. I'll do a little pre-match patter. People seem to like a couple of the new shows that we're doing, so the pre-match patter will go on. And after the show, this is the new Food Bank shirt. And this is the top that Peter Beardsley played in the game last Friday. Signed by Peter Beardsley. That is going up for the Food Bank. A big shout out to New Workwear. Big shout out to Arcot. Chris was in the chat earlier on. But yeah, this is going to go out there for the Food Bank, and I will stick that on my Twitter at the end of the show. Get your bids in. We'll have that on until next week. But yeah, great game last night. And I did give John plenty of praise last week, and I'll do the same again now. John, you did a fantastic job, mate. Once that shirt goes, I know you'll probably have a final total, but well done, mate, on behalf of the Food Bank. Absolutely superb. John Askew's just asking about On a different subject, do you think there's more bad blood between different clubs fans than there was, say, 10 or 20 years ago? And if so, is the bile on social media the main cause? I guess this really comes from the social media stuff that we saw. I think Mozza mentioned it a little bit earlier as well, between Newcastle and Everton fans. Now, there is a bit of beef, between Newcastle and Everton. There's been a little bit going on between these for numerous years. Nothing major, nothing big scale, but there's been a couple of incidents which I think has left a sour taste in the mouth between the more excitable fans. But avoiding talking about that and just concentrating on a whole, Mitch, is there more bad blood between different clubs? I think it was a lot worse in the 80s.
It's different. It's different because it isn't what it was in the 80s. In the 80s, you'd lie in the front of the coach on the way into Ayson Park while all the windows came in. You'd run around Filbert Street being chased by people with knives. We've all been there in one way, shape, form, or another. Now I see it as it's lots of fart and no shite. It's all wind on certain aspects of social media. It's easier to get wound up that way. Yet when you sit down, like I get the opportunity to with fans from all over the place out here, face to face, the conversations are very, very different. Even though sometimes some big mates that support other clubs out here will fall out on social media on occasions and get carried away in that storm. Some of the recent sort of disagreements, the Villa one, I'll never forget that ride out of Villa Park and in that convoy and the minibus after we got relegated and how much they loved it. And I think that sticks in my mind very, very well. And I'll never forget it. Nor will I think I ever properly forgive it because there was no need for it. So that seemed to come from nowhere. The stuff with Everton seemed to come out of the blue a little bit and certainly changed when we started calling them the Scouse Magnums. That seemed to really accelerate things. And yet, ironically, if you look at what goes on between us and the Magnums now, because there genuinely is such a gap now in many ways that I find it to get difficult to get wound up by them now. Everything they say is just amusing. And I can see the local rivalry, if it stays as it is, almost dissolving into something like what we have with Middlesbrough, where they care a lot about us, but we don't really care that much about them. And so, and I think you'll see that evolution change as we get bigger, there's more green eyes looking to the northeast. As we get bigger and bolder, there's more born out of, I wish it was us. And why wasn't it us? I think that drives some of it as well. Because, I mean, certainly when you look at where Everton are at the minute, I still believe that they're quietly up for sale. I still believe Mashori wants out. And so I think, I think they look at us as a club and think, well, if only. And so... And I think Villa fans are very well aware about what their club's done with the money that they've spaffed away over the last few years in making rash decisions. So I think we can all get caught up in the social media furore about it. But it certainly isn't like what it was where God, remember running down the chicken run at West Ham, that all seems to be a lot more sanitized these days. And a lot more of it's sort of hold us back, but nothing actually really happens. It's just dancing.
Yeah.
And so I guess that outlet now is social media, and as we know ourselves from different ways, you can say what the hell you like on social media, and often you don't get pulled up about it, but it means jack.
Yeah, no, you're right, mate. 100%. Bad news coming in from Clubber here. Hurry up, he says. Get your advent calendars, boys, as I hear their days are numbered.
Hey.
Oh.
Well done, Clubber. That's what I like to see. Steve, but yeah, I mean, football violence back in the 80s, it was rife. Do you know what I mean? It was a reflection on the social times, I guess. We're coming into the miners' strike, and people were struggling financially. years of decline. This day and age, there's more cameras and stuff. It's, the police prefer football supporters or people to misbehave. They just stand there and film them, and then they go and kick their doors in 2 weeks later. I mean, that's the way it works now. You can't get away with football hooliganism. But I guess the question was, are we seeing more rivalry than we've seen in recent years because of social media?
I think we're seeing more rivalry, and a lot of the rivalry is good-humoured banter, good-humoured rivalry. It then spills over into little spats and arguments and things like that. But when it comes to the crunch, I mean, I was standing at the food bank with Dave Kelly from the Blue Union, and the lads at Everton and Liverpool were the guys who influenced us and prompted us to set up NUFC Fans Food Bank. Myself, Bill, and Colin, and we're in weekly contact with them through Twitter, through DMs, emails. They're always keep us informed. That's how we've ended up with a fan supporting food bank network, and now we've got clubs right across Scotland and England, and one or two in Wales that are following the same lead. But when we're standing there, we're having a great bit of banter about the game as well. So we start off by talking about this and that to do with food banks. And then we I see you playing so-and-so. He's playing today. He's crap. He's going to take you on. Oh, no, he's the man and all. And that's the banter. That's the crack. And it's exactly the same. It's like the old days in school when there was somebody supporting Man U and somebody supporting Sunderland and somebody supported Everton or Arsenal or Chelsea. There was always crack and banter among them. I was away in Germany at the weekend. There was 18 Geordies and one Man United fan sitting together and watching the match on Sunday. And the crack was great because he was having a go at us about certain things during the game, and we were able to bounce off it and bounce back, and that's what was good. And this was a mate, that's the way it goes. You're right about the violent side, the way it was in the 80s, and it's a totally different thing. And also, people in the 80s, you didn't get the bans. Now you're in a situation where cause any sort of trouble before, during, or after a game. And like you say, the cameras are there. They come and lift you, and then you've got a ban and order, and the very thing that you love, which is going to the match, gets taken away from you. So I think that's why it tends to be, as you say, the dancing around the handbags that you see on Barrett Road that went on the other day. Nobody lifted, nobody arrested from either club. Some fireworks thrown, and that's about it. It looks good on social media, but compared to what you used to see, the trouble that Man United caused back in the late 70s and early 80s, the pitch invasions, the Millwalls and etc. This world, it's U certificate stuff, isn't it, compared to the X-rated stuff that we remember.
Yeah, Joe, it's it's just not nice when you see the videos. And George McVeigh made a good point. He says, because everyone's got mobile phones now, everybody can see what's happening. 10 years ago, you would never see this. And yeah, I mean, the footage I saw was dark, it was grainy. We saw a few fireworks going off. I heard people going, "There's been gunshots" and all that. I mean, you can understand kids and maybe elderly fans being a little bit perturbed about that. And there'll be a few people who've never been to the match before, or a few people who've never been to the match at all, who have been caught up in the middle of that, and it could put them off. So I guess it comes back down to policing outside the ground, and I saw some people saying this, blah, 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 the police officers, and they weren't exactly hot-footing it to the action. You know what I mean? So I don't know. What's your views on it, Joe?
Well, the world's different now, isn't it? It's not the 70s, it's not the 80s anymore, and people who were participating in kind of that hooliganism, as it was known collectively, pretty much heading towards being fathers, grandfathers, and God knows whatever else now, aren't there? And this new generation, I think football hooliganism, football violence now, the sense I get is 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds who've asked for a Stone Island jumper for Christmas. I guess, I'll taking photos of each, and posting them on videos on Twitter and that, shadow boxing, and it's all bravado, isn't it? The whole social media world is for likes and to wind people up from a distance. Because while I'm tweeting the fact that you're a dickhead because you support Newcastle, I don't have to say it to your face, do I? Policing's different, isn't it? Like you say, CCTV's different, football banning orders are different. But I think football's different. I go to watch the match to have a pint with my mates and hopefully watch your team win. Long gone are the days of trying to fill people in and thinking you were the bloke off Green Street, where a football factory. So I'm sure it still exists. I'm sure it's organised. I'm sure there's still Burnley fans, 50-year-old, 55-year-old meeting in a field somewhere on a Saturday morning, with Blackburn fans, I'm sure. But let them get on with it, as far as I'm concerned. Culturally, it was a thing. Culturally, it's not a thing anymore. And I think in terms of the emergency services, in terms of, A&E departments, police officers, and the experience of young fans or elderly fans, as you've just mentioned, going into the grounds, witnessing some of this stuff, it can stay on Twitter for me, because at least on Twitter, it's not hurting anybody, is it?
Yeah, it's a bit of cocaine culture. We've covered that on the show, to be honest. A little bit of this white powder is doing the rounds with the young'uns, and they don't really, realise what they're doing and the kind of bother they're getting themselves into, and the fact that they can ruin their lives really by doing this. They just need to screw their loaves on a little bit more. But that's for the parents to sort out, not for me to preach on this platform. Okay, 20 minutes to go. We've got a bit to get through, and there's no Keith Patterson, so I haven't got the bag of laughs, as I like to call him. But it doesn't mean that we haven't got two lookalikes. And straight in at number 1 for tonight. Honestly, Tom Dixon has definitely got some new apps on his phone. I didn't even separate them, Steve. He's gone for a full range on this Reface app of just you, Steve. There's been a fix. There's been a Steve Hasty fixation. He finished with that one, Steve, anyway. I quite like that one, actually, Steve.
I hope the hell you're doing a calendar of the best ones.
I tell you what, there needs to be. Some people send videos in. Somebody sent us this one on Instagram. My lovely furry friend, and they just went, "You know who?" I was thinking maybe Steve.
Which I replied, no.
This one was another one from Tom Dixon. It was a late call, that one from Tom. We've got a new person on Twitter who keeps sending these through. Ethelred the Unready sent these. Honestly, Steve, Keith would have howled at these. I'm sure he will when he watches back. That. I don't know where they find these photographs of these dogs. Where did this one? Look at this. How do you make a dog do that with its teeth? And this was my favourite. Oh, look at the Ben. Look at the Ben. Steve Hasty at Christmas getting his little costume there. This one, podcast royalty, me and Steve.
That
very
was
good.
Spooky, wasn't it?
You look at Charles. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Steve Wraith, King of England.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
there's a T-shirt, John. There's a T-shirt.
Jesus Christ, we'll be calling you on that one, mate.
Wayne Bennett said, "Very pretty, Mr. Hasty." Wayne's a lovely lad when you meet him as well, isn't he? Apparently, but he loves having a puppy on here. He also says there's a certain who had a trim this week.
No.
And I don't know who sent this, but I loved it.
God.
Okay, moving on to this one, the final one of Steve. Genuinely thought the person second from the right was Hasty doing his normal good work for the food bank. Even when you're not at the food bank, you're at the food bank. The Newcastle United picture certainly caused some conjecture this week as well. You made it into the dressing room photo, said Sean Casey. You may be looking at that and going, well, where on earth is Steve Wraith? Who's this guy? Who is this guy? I've got no idea, but everybody in Andy was putting this out. Andrew Musgrove put the picture out. Good on Steve Wraith for getting in there. Then
Right,
this one. We must be Las Palmas Mags. Is that you in our fantastic team photo, Steve? This one. This bugger gets everywhere, says Albert. And this one, the list is endless. Darren Drinkold, Darren Tannock, and then we moved on to this one. Yes, I hope Steve Hasty wasn't hurt after he was threatened for missing last week's show by Steve Wraith. Very good. You might imagine sitting watching EastEnders and going, "There's Steve Hasty. Oh, there's Steve Wraith." Brilliant. That was brilliant. This one, Mickey from Only Fools and Horses and Liam Ridgewell.
Yeah.
Yes.
David Caruso and Alex McLeish.
Yeah. Often thought that one.
Stephen Carr and Hannibal Lecter.
More like
Left field.
Not fooling anyone with the new haircut, said Steve Hasty. Very good, Steve. And this one, Gary Newman and Crazed Art Gallery Soup Juggler. Dolph Lundgren and Sven Botman.
Yes.
Yeah. There's
Chiseled.
Thanks, Kaz. And this one, a brilliant lookalike, guys. Gary Lineker and Daniel's son, a.k.a. Karate Kid. Now, bear with us because I've got to load the other one just so you can get because the picture on there didn't quite do it justice. So there you go.
Hey.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. This one, that was from No Context Brits. Mark sent us it. Winston Churchill and the bloke down the pub, by the looks of it. The weather guy of
doing that.
well done, Albert. Paul Mooney, or is it Alan Brazil? He says.
Hey, never spotted that. That's good, Albert. Well done. Starting to get the knack of it, Albert.
Tarkowski and Lee Evans from Steve Corbett.
Yes.
Yeah. And this one again, Newcastle dressing room last night and Ukraine today, says Albert. Steve Wraith on a mission, it seems. This one from Jimmy, T-Rex and Jordan Pickford. Thanks, Jimmy. From Rita, Anthony Gordon. And this one from Phil Brown, Bruce Patterson, or is it Keith Willis? And the last, coming down to the last couple here, we got inundated this week, actually. Lookalike, Adam Pearson. Very muddy.
Poor Adam.
And Sally Cinnamon, one for this Friday's tune lookalike, Subutio Paul and Mark Noble from his loving but piss-taking girlfriend. Me and the boy can't look at this picture without absolutely losing it. She went, sorry, but it's absolute class, although you're much better looking, she says.
Oh.
Tell you what, it's really good. That is clever.
Paul did messages after that. Jacob said it was good to see me in Hurt Locker. And Warkeith's showing off his new bling around tune, says Wayne. Is this Geordie Dentist the day after his birthday drinks, says Wayne?
I felt like it. Jesus.
And Gary Douglas says Jurgen Klopp lookalike. All right, coming down to the top two. And at number 2, Dean Saunders and some bloke in a film, but missed the titles, says Simi. But it does look a bit like him. Number 1 this week, Rita Oxley. Antonio Conte and the carry-on actor Jim Dale.
Yeah.
Hey, well spotted. Yes.
Brilliant stuff. Excellent stuff. Thank you. Keep them coming in. Loved it. Okay, Newcastle play Tottenham Hotspur this weekend. It is Sunday 4:30 kickoff. And as always, we've got Team Stato to give us his view on things.
Hi all, couple of quick stats before our game on Sunday against Tottenham Hotspur. Now I start with my favorite piece of stat from this week. Last season, Newcastle reached 18 points in the Premier League after their home win against Everton in February, when I had the privilege to be at the stadium. Now we reached 18 points after our home win against Everton in October, which goes on to show the progress that the club has made for these 7-8 months. Now, when it comes to Tottenham, it's common knowledge that we have the most away wins against them and against West Ham in the Premier League. We have won 10 out of 27 games at their ground, including one win on their new stadium. We have 1 win, 1 draw, and 1 defeat there since they moved to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Now, Tottenham, on the other hand, have 8 consecutive wins at home in the Premier League since they lost to Brighton in April. And when you take into account that they beat also Marseille and Eintracht Frankfurt in the Champions League, they have 10 wins in a row. Theoretically, if they beat us on Sunday, it can get up to 11. When it comes to players, Miguel Almiron is on fire. He already has 5 goals in the Premier League, beating his own record of 4, which he registered in 1920 and 2021. He has 14 goals in total now in the Premier League, so he surpassed Hatem Ben Arfa. He's equal with Loic Remy, and he's only 1 behind Andy Carroll. Joelinton and Fabian Schär should be careful. Both of them are on 4 yellow cards, so if they get a yellow on Sunday, they'll miss one of our next games. Away the lads, and let's hope we get our usual 3 points away to Tottenham. Bye.
Thanks, Andrea. And now it's time for Tune Tips. Go on then, Joe.
Don't worry, everyone. The tipster is back after overwhelming public demand, after he was axed live on air last time he was on. I say overwhelming public demand. I had one text off our mum saying, "Why weren't you on the show?" Cheers, Wend. In terms of the prices for Sunday, for what is our 3rd game in 8 days, or as I call it, 2 games a week, lads. Get on with it. Despite having the best defence in the world, obviously we go into this game as second favourites. However, tellingly, the gap is not as big as it has been in recent away games at Tottenham. The home team are just over evens to win. The draw is just under 5-2, and so are Newcastle for the away win. When a strong attack meets a solid back 4, the bookies often sit on the fence when it comes to goals. So it's just under evens for both over or under 2.5 goals in the game, depending on whether you think there'll be goals or not. 1-0 Tottenham, 8-1. 2-0, 10-1. 2-1 Tottenham, 17-2. And 3-0 Tottenham, 20-1. If you fancy a draw, 0-0 is 10-1. 1s each, 6-1. 2s each, 14-1. And if you think Newcastle come away with the points, 1-0, 11-1. 2-0, 20-1. 2-1 is 12-1. And if you fancy a penman, you can have 28-1. Money to be made if you pick an anytime goal scorer this week, with Harry Kane leading the way at 11-8, followed by Son at 2-1. Callum Wilson comes in 3rd favourite at 9-4, and let's be honest, he is due a goal. Miggy is an impressive 13-2 to carry on his incredible form, and I think Joe Willock's due a goal at some point very soon as well. He's 7-1 if you think he'll pop up on Sunday. Due to not updating for a couple of weeks, there's £108 in the food bank pot, and that was added to by Miggy Almiron's strike on Wednesday. Unfortunately, though, Steve, I do apologise. I didn't bother with the Joe Linton to be booked bet, and sure enough, he went clattering in, but I do apologise. This week, I'm going to try something slightly different. I'm going to go for my new hero, Sven Botman, to score at 14-1, as set pieces and dead balls might be the way that we score on Sunday. I'm also going to say that Dan Byrne's going to get booked, and that's 3-1. Very quickly, in terms of the Super Six, the predictions are open until kick-off tomorrow if you're playing. And Newcastle United do feature again this week. On 155 points, our own Steve Wilkinson remains top, and he's 5 points clear of Nicky Redhead and Stephen Thompson. And in terms of the manager of the month, Maureen Stobbart is 3 points clear of Frank Huntley in the race. So keep going, Maureen, and hopefully you'll win the pot in a week's time. Bet safe, everybody. Take care.
Great stuff, as always, Tipster, and we'll stay with you. We want your prediction first for the match. How do you see this one going, Leo, pal?
We called on the show, didn't we? We had these 3 games coming up, and there was a lot to be said about 3 games, and one doesn't like to brag, obviously, but I think what we said was, if we can beat Everton and get a draw at Old Trafford, essentially the Tottenham game becomes a free hit. And lo and behold, we've got the 4 points, haven't we? So I'd have been happy with that. It's not an easy place to go, although I didn't realise, actually, that we do quite well there until I've just heard Andre. I'll be honest with everybody. My Super Six prediction says 2-0 to Spurs, because one of the things that I did notice last on Wednesday night was we just about looked out on our knees. Miggy's not going to last 90 minutes with the shift he's putting in. Bruno looks absolutely knackered. Shah was down, up and down and up and down. Joe Linton hobbled off. We looked a little bit broken. We know Callum Wilson can't play for 90 minutes. That's abundantly clear. So the head, absolutely, unfortunately, the head says 2-0, but my heart, in light of the fact that we've got a fantastic defence, a fairly decent record, and I'm going to say this, and I hope I don't give us the kiss of death, Harry Kane's not exactly pulling trees up at the moment. Can we get a 1-1 draw? So I'll answer the question and say it'll be 1-1.
Okay, 1-1. You've changed your mind a little bit. Okay, Steve.
Taking everything into consideration, I'm expecting some changes to be made. I think Joe Linton doesn't sound as though he'll start. He went off at half time, and he was all strapped up anyway. It looked like he was carrying some sort of knee problem. So I'm not expecting him to play. I wonder whether Chris Wood will play instead of Wilson. I'm wondering whether we'll see a change at the back. I'm wondering whether he'll not play Shaw and perhaps move Burn over and bring Target in. Maybe because Shaw's on 4 bookings, and he might be thinking, you know what, let's just take him out the foul line. He's had a couple of knocks. Looked like he got cramp again. He also got a knock on his knee, and I'm wondering whether he's probably ready for a rest. He's probably going to say totally the opposite, and be expecting to play. I was going to go for 1-1 as well. Me head was saying 1-1, but my heart is saying I think we'll get a 2-1 win. So I'm going to go. I was going to go for 1-1, but when Joe snapped it, I thought, you know what, I'll go with my heart, and I'll go 2-1 win to Newcastle.
Okay, have we got the dice is the big question.
No, because I thought I'd left my bag with it in at work, and I haven't. It's in the car.
Okay, no problem. So we're going to have to go for a good old-fashioned prediction.
I would be taking Joe on his 1-1 and under 2.5 goals and working that in as a double if I was still a betting man. And I think you get some canny return on that, and I think that's what it'll be. I think we'll get a 1-1 draw. 1-1
draw. I'm going to go 2-1 win. I think Newcastle can win this game. I think Richarlison being out is a blow for Newcastle. Got a big decision to make. Joe Linton, I don't think is going to be available after listening to Eddie Howe today. Willock, of course, recovering from illness, although he did feature against Everton on Wednesday night. I'm going to have Newcastle to keep the run going. I really am. I think there'll be a momentum for Newcastle, and yeah, I think we'll go there with a positive. So 2-1 to me. I think Spurs will win 2-1. So it'll be interesting to see. Don't forget, I'm back 10:30 tomorrow morning with Penman and Jacobs. Steve Bennett, thank you very much. £175 was the winning bid for the Steve Howie T-shirt. Absolutely brilliant. So that money goes straight to the food bank. But everybody, have a good weekend. Thanks for everybody in the chat. Go on, Mitch.
Just a quick one, if you don't mind, mate. I just want to say happy birthday to my lovely mum, and I hope your dad's had a great day with her.
Fantastic, mate. Great stuff. Happy birthday, Marjorie, from all of us at NUFC Matters. And we will see you bright and early, 10:30 tomorrow morning. Steve, Joe, Mitch, Andrea, thanks for everything. Take care, lads.
Cheers, everyone.
Have a good weekend.